One of the most significant allotments you have is for special education. It's very important, and it's a significant amount of money. And it's a little bit more complex than the others because there's different parts to it. But of the 10, special education we'll talk about right now, there are 12 instructional arrangements, and that's where the complexity comes. And these are arrangements that you use to meet certain needs, categories that of student needs as defined by the federal government. And so you have a setting that you serve these children in, and it must be in the least restrictive environment. In other words, you want the children in with the general population of regular students as much as possible. So for most special ed, you will have students that are in the regular classroom, and maybe someone in special education will come in and give extra services. But that's not always the case, but it is generally the case. You also have services like special education. We'll talk about those in just a minute. Now, the special ed allotment is the sum of all of the little allotments you get for each one of these arrangements. And so you'll have the same general formula. You have your adjusted allotment. You'll have the weight for that arrangement, which isn't the same like Comp Ed had that one weight of 0.2, bilingual had 0.1. Well, here you have 12 different arrangements. And then you multiply by not ADA, but full-time equivalents. And as you recall, that's 30 hours of contact, 30 contact hours a week is equivalent of one FTE, or full-time equivalent. And those are the arrangements you see on the screen there. You have homebound, hospital class speech therapy, resource room, self-contained mild, moderate, self-contained severe, off-home campus, vocational adjustment class, state schools, non-public contracts, residential care and treatment, and mainstream. And most of your students are going to be right there. Resource room, self-contained mild and moderate, and occasionally your severe. And you'll notice, even though you're going to have a higher cost with kids that are in the severe instructional arrangement, it has the same weight. And back in the mid-90s, a decision was made is to take those three categories and average their weights, because it was more costly to have kids more cost efficient as far as having a resource room, so that had a lower weight, and a higher weight for the mild and moderate, and then the highest weight for the children that were self-contained. As you can imagine, you have to have a program that may only have a handful of kids in there, but you still have a teacher and you have special equipment. And there was a concern that because it had a higher weight and generated more money, that people would be too quick to put kids in that environment as opposed to leaving them in the regular classroom. So they just kind of averaged it, and you actually ended up with a little bit higher weight for the resource room and a lower weight for the self-contained. So all three of those were set at that same weight for that reason. Now the formula is the same as what we've seen in the earlier sessions. The adjusted allotment times the arrangement weight, which you can see right there. Here are the weights for each of those areas, times the full-time equivalents, the FTEs, of kids that are in that particular instructional arrangement. And with a product of those three numbers gives you the allotment for that particular arrangement. You're not required to spend that money on that arrangement because they total up all of that, and it's the total of those funding, little mini funding allotments, and that becomes your special ed allotment. And that's it.